Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome, folks. Today the Hungry Gamer is back. Today I am with Scott Caputo, designer of Sorcerer City, which is being fulfilled very shortly and will be available to all of you as soon as possible. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his game Sorcerer City and why it is the greatest game in the history of the
Sure.
No pressure.
All right, so let me show you this cover. So in Sorcerer City, you play as a wizard architect. So in this game, it's a tile laying game and a deck building where you're literally moving city blocks around. You get to purchase new city blocks as you play. And I can show you how that works.
So, and I had the opportunity to play a demo version of this without this artwork. And the game is a lot of fun, but look at this gorgeous art on these cards, which is, I'm learning, is a hallmark of Skybound games. But tell us about this game.
Sure, absolutely. So every player starts with the same deck. And you can see that these tiles have different colors on them, representing different types of city districts. So each player has 2 minutes to build their city. And don't worry, if you don't like real-time games, 2 minutes is a really long time, especially for the first few rounds. So you shuffle your deck, and you will play one tile at a time. Once you like where you play it, you keep playing. Another tile, once you place it, you can't move it. And at its most basic, you're trying to match up these different colored city blocks, and you want to score as much as you can with each of these. I'll just go ahead and do some quick playing here. There are 3 kinds of goals in the game, and let me show you how those work. So the first kind of goal is a group goal. You need to have 3 or more tiles that are connected in any kind of shape. So for example, these tiles here would count. 1, 2, 3, and I would get 3 of the yellow resource, which in this game is money. I can get more than that though. In this case, this actually makes a really long path. If this was up here, I could actually score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yellow. This kind of goal is a little bit more restrictive. You need to have 3 tiles in a straight line. So in this case, that's not quite enough. But if I had this one here, that would be enough, and I would have 1, 2, 3 yellow. I could definitely score more than that. And if I had something like this, I can score both goals at once. So I would get 1, 2, 3, 4 for this goal, and 1, 2, 3, 4 for that goal. So I would get 8 money, which is really great. The last kind of goal looks like this, and you're trying to get shields, any color shields around this shield to score. So in this situation, if I look around this, and you include diagonals, I have 1, 2, 3 neighbors, and you also count itself. So this one would score me 4 of the red, which happens to be influence. And so each player scores their city. We've got this scoreboard that each player will work. So maybe I have 7 money, and the green is points, red is influence, and purple is raw magic. And I'll talk about each of those. So to win the game, you need to have the most prestige, which is the green, and it's how much you get over 5 rounds. The yellow is money, because you're gonna at each round you're gonna buy new tiles into your city, and you'll see in the market that we have up here, there are different tiles that have costs associated with them. This is an example of a tile. This costs 9 money, and you can buy 1 or 2 tiles. Sometimes you can buy more tiles if you have more money, or other tiles can help you to get more buys. So you can buy tiles up here, which are going to go into your city deck. And there's also red, which is influence, because each year you'll see that there's a number of points and like a special power that whoever has the most influence will get to do. In this example here, this particular card says buy tiles at half price, rounded up. So that's a pretty good one to have at the beginning of the game, help get you more tiles or better tiles. Some of the other ones, for example, this one causes other players to destroy a tile. You could kill monsters in your city, which we'll talk about in a moment, or just getting other free tiles. There are about, I think, 15 different possible rewards, so every game you play will be different. The last kind of resource that you have is raw magic, and the way that this works is every player will have their own little mini deck of the same 3 cards. They look like this. And each player is secretly going to pick to transform all of their raw magic into one of the other 3 colors. So we talked about prestige, we talked about money, and we talked about influence. So going around the table, people would announce, oh, I've got 8 influence, but I could get up to 13. And someone else might say, well, I have 10 and I can get to 12. And you, at this point, you kind of have to think about what you think other players are going to do. There's a little bit of bluffing and trying to read your other opponents, because maybe you transform all of your magic and you still didn't have more influence than another player. Maybe you should have used it to get money instead, or get points instead. Or maybe the opposite could happen, where you thought they were going to go for influence and they didn't. And you could have beat them if you had played that card. So there's a lot of kind of thinking about what people are going to do. Each player picks a card, they put it face down, everybody reveals at the same time, and then all of the purple gets transformed into whatever color that you pick. So in this case, maybe I picked red. Then in influence order, people will get rewards and points, buy tiles.
And so you mentioned monsters, and so when we played, I did not manage monsters at all, really, but it's also something that it's really, I thought was a really cool aspect of the game. Let's talk about
Let's talk about monsters. So at the end of each of the first 4 rounds, each player is going to get a monster into their deck. And there are a lot of possible monsters, but let's talk about this one, for example. This is the Kraken. When the Kraken appears, you have to immediately tear three of your tiles out of your city and put them at the bottom of your deck. So he kind of forces you to tear your city apart, but if you're fast, you can get those tiles back. And the way that monsters work is they go into your deck. Any tiles that I buy, let's say I bought these 2 tiles, would go into your deck. You tear your entire city down, you shuffle it, and you're actually going to rebuild that city all over again in that 2-minute timer.
And so each round, though, you have less time because you have more tiles you're dealing with.
That's right. So then some of the other monsters to talk about, so this is a dragon. So when he comes out, he immediately destroys a tile that you place him next to, so that's pretty bad. Some of the harder monsters, we've got the giant. The way the giant works, you have to place on top of a tile that you bought. So something that you got from the market. So he's basically crushing it. The genie, when he comes out, he forces you to place all of your monster tiles on top of your city tiles.
Oh.
So he's also quite bad. So a part of the game is buying really good tiles to keep getting more prestige, more money, more influence, more magic, while also figuring out how you're going to deal with these monsters. Because unfortunately, Sorcerer City has a bit of a monster problem. They're a little embarrassed to talk about it, but you as a wizard architect have to figure out a way to mitigate that.
So everyone, as I said, I got to try this game with Scott the other night, and it is so much fun. And as you can see here, the components are top notch. So the last thing I'm going to ask Scott about this is, well, 2 things. One, when and how can they get a hold of this game? And then the second question is, what is your favorite aspect of this game? And I'm going to ask you to try to pick just one.
Okay, sure. So Sorcerer City will go to backers, because it was funded on Kickstarter, by October 31st. At least that's the current plan. And then it should hit retail shortly after that. So I would say this fall, you should be able to go to your friendly local game store, pre-order it, and hopefully have it in your hands before Christmas.
And I will put a link in the description to Skybound Games website so you can check that out. And so, what is your favorite aspect of this beautiful game you designed?
I think my favorite aspect are probably the monsters. With a little bit of the time pressure, figuring out like, monsters can be helpful, and if you can be clever enough, you can find ways to work around the monsters or even use the monsters to your benefit. As an example, one of my favorite monsters is the dragon. He sounds pretty terrible. He destroys a tile that he's next to, but you can actually use the dragon to toast other monsters in your city. So if you can pull that off, you feel pretty good about that. So I would say that's probably one of my favorite parts.
Well, thank you, Scott, for this.
Can I say one more thing too?
Yes.
So I know there's a lot of people out there who are solo players. There is a solo mode for this. That's very robust, very fun. That's very similar to the main game, but the idea is the city is being taken over by monsters. So every round you're adding monsters on top of the market tiles, and you have to. You can buy the tile and take care and get the monster off there, but if the market is completely overrun by monsters, then you lose. And so there's a really interesting mechanic of how to deal with that.
And so to get the tile underneath the monster, you got to buy the monster also.
You gotta buy the monster.
Oh, it's nasty.
So
they have and soloable folks. So Scott, thank you so much for sharing this. Everybody, you will be able to get a hold of this as soon as the fall. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Bye.